The girl looks at herself in the mirror, talking about the stupid woman who could not take proper advantage of having such a body. I wonder if she's already dead, the new owner of the beautiful appearance asks. The girl believes that if the true owner of the body is still alive, then she should at least be confused and terrified. According to the lady, that woman should be grateful to her because she diligently pretended to be a victim and tried to commit suicide, and now, thanks to the gifted body, she can finally die. Ungrateful sheep? The girl says to herself, seeing fresh cuts on her hand. When she licks the blood from fresh wounds, a certain Yan knocks on her door and asks her to let him in. The girl wonders who this guy is. She hasn't had much time to adapt to her new body, and she doesn't know if she should let him in. Having put on a robe, she still allows the guy to enter her. Ian is the butler of the county of Alberhat. He asks the lady for forgiveness when he enters her room. The guy casts a nasty look at the girl, which makes her wonder how a servant could dare to look like that at the person she serves. However, she became interested in him and would not even mind going on a date with him. "You seem to be in a good mood today," Ian remarks. The young lady confirms his words. The butler decides to share his concern about the girl's condition, but he is glad that she is full of energy again. The heroine tells the guy about her intentions to change from today. Lost in thought, she wonders what Ian is thinking about. As she raised her hand to straighten her hair, her injured hand became visible. The servant saw this and expressed his concern about it. He reminds her that she won't change anything this way. "Why can't you just take care of yourself?" asks Ian. The butler explains to the girl that she cannot break off her engagement to Count Lawrence by harming herself. The heroine did not expect that Bertha, the owner of the body, had a fiancé. She wonders if she would be better off getting married. John explains that marriage is not only about love, but also about other circumstances. Therefore, the Count is an excellent partner for concluding a political alliance with her. The girl does not understand why the butler is so sensitive to the engagement, which Bertha hated so much that she tried to commit suicide. In addition, the lady believes that the only advantages of marriage are love. The heroine decides to simply silently observe the events. Yang decides that the girl has indeed changed her mind, but he still decides to ask if he can give her a massage, like before. He thinks the lady should have gotten used to it by now. The butler takes her in his arms and throws her onto the soft bed. This makes the heroine wonder what is happening now. She's considering just waiting and seeing for herself. According to her, she had a great opportunity to find out about Bertha's real situation. "And now, if I may," says Yang, taking the girl by the head after taking off his gloves. He lifts the young lady's leg and begins to caress her. The butler is sure that she feels more relaxed now. The servant begins to go lower and lower down the leg, passing with her tongue. He begins to think that she is already relaxed, so he decides to move to another place. He takes off her underwear, and the girl begins to wonder why Bertha allowed the butler to do this. Spreading the girl's legs, Ian says that he is going to make it even more pleasant for her, so she will have to get used to it. The heroine is at a loss. She does not understand how the arrogant Bertha could allow the butler such liberties. Ian puts his lips to the girl's intimate place and begins to work with his tongue. The lady wonders what's going on here right now. The girl thinks what is happening is simply ridiculous. She cannot believe that the butler coveted the body of the young mistress. After some time, the butler, thanks to his efforts, manages to bring the young lady to orgasm. After the incident, Ian talks a little about the Lawrence family. According to him, this is a family with a promising political future. The butler was also confident that the lady would one day realize the value of this marriage. With the girl's permission, the servant leaves. After this, the heroine wonders if Bertha lived like this all her life. As she takes a bath, the lady begins to reflect on the fact that she is not the Bertha everyone knew, so she does not have to hide the antics of the impudent butler. However, if the lady changes so suddenly, no one will believe her, so she decides not to take this step. But still, he promises himself to think more about what to do with this gadget. Enjoying the possibilities of a new body, Rita, already in the past, remembers how day after day she hid the accumulated anger and resentment. Because, as she believes, the anger of a person who finds himself at the bottom is a meaningless waste of time. And if someone stronger is nearby, they will crush you and won't even remember about it later, according to the girl. Now, there is no longer any Rita desperately fighting for life, and from now on the heroine takes on her new appearance and will live as Bertha Alberhat, the only daughter of the Count's family. First of all, she bursts into her servants and, turning to them, tells everyone to get ready. The girls, by order of the mistress, display all the dresses that Bertha has in stock. After examining them all, The girl decides for herself that all these dresses are miserable. She jumps up and turns to the servants. "Which of you writes the fastest?" One girl from the crowd reluctantly raises her hand. The mistress tells the maid to take the paper and go get it. She will write down her every word. Bertha points to a row of dresses that the servants put out for her and gives the order to throw them all away. Getting closer to some of the dresses, the girl decides that a couple could be changed a little. She begins to tell how she wants to change one of the dresses. The girl wants a deeper neckline, lower the neckline, remove all the large jewelry, as well as annoying ruffles. Rereading everything that the servant wrote, the girl wonders what is happening now, noticing that these were the mistress's favorite outfits. Bertha instructs all her dresses to be made this way, and also reveals her plans to go to a clothing store this week and pick up catalogs. The heroine, after all the instructions, asks the maid Jana and Sona to follow her, because she has another task for them. She leads them to a room and asks them to wait outside the doors. The girl herself, after going inside, takes off her shoes and comes closer to the door and leans her ear against it. All this was done in order to listen to what the girls would talk about, because the maids are the most knowledgeable people in the house, and when they get tired of waiting, the maids begin to gossip. After some time, one of the servants wonders why the young mistress brought them here. The friend responds by asking if she has rearranged the furniture, noting that Earl Lawrence's son will be here next week. Having learned about this, the first maid remembers how Bertha hates her fiancé. All this time, the heroine overheard the maid's conversation and now knows that the son of Count Lawrence is also not happy with her. One of the servants says that the groom always comes to the mistress, accompanied by a very strange man who always goes with him. Jana remembers who Sona is talking about and notices the good body of the male knight, but expresses her dissatisfaction with his facial expression. Hearing this, Bertha wonders who would take a friend with them on their way to see their fiancé. While thinking, the maid says that Count Lawrence occupies an important position. He is the right hand of the Marquis Carter. Another servant, in turn, speaks of a rumor that the Marquis directly had a hand in this engagement. Having learned that the girl in whose body Rita is now is the bride of Carter's assistant's son, she is overjoyed. After all, now she has a chance to take revenge on Carter for making the Baroness an ordinary waitress. The heroine expresses delight in the life that Bertha had. The girl expresses interest in what their family did such a thing, since the Marquis decided to seduce the young widow of the Baron, provide for her, leaving her no choice. He also contributed to the expulsion of her daughter. She wonders why someone as powerful as Carter would intervene in Baron Walker's petty dispute. The heroine does not understand his action at all, but now she has the opportunity to find out the reason. Wait a little, fraud Carter. Bertha asks herself, since he ruined her life, should she not return everything to him in double amount? Suddenly, opening the door, the mistress turns to her servants and asks them to get them all the perfume. Looking at each perfume, she discusses how the perfume is like an invisible veil. Men are very susceptible to the influence of the Erat, according to her. She remembers how they were fascinated by even the cheap perfume that the girl used while working at the bar. But from such a luxurious perfume, she is sure that the guys will definitely go crazy. Despite the fact that Bertha's taste in clothes was so-so, her perfume collection was very good, according to the heroine. Suddenly, John comes to them and notifies Milady that her groom will arrive on this plot, and not on the next one. The butler also asks the lady to open the door of her heart for a strong relationship between the two families. She decides to ask him if the groom will come again, accompanied by his friend with the title of Baron. Ian replies that, as always, he will arrive in pairs with a friend. Hearing the answer, Bertha asks why the groom always comes with Jacquard. It seems strange to the girl that this man constantly follows him, like a dog follows his owner, and she shares her observations with the butler. He doesn't know what the reason for such actions is, and since the lady has no more orders, he is going to leave. The heroine begins to wonder why the servant informed her that the groom would arrive soon, but did not say a word about his friend. In addition, Yang seemed a little embarrassed in the girl's eyes when she started talking about the Baron. Ian, Lawrence, and even this Baron, who constantly accompanies the groom, are all very suspicious, says the lady. While the carriage with her fiancé and his friend is traveling to the house of Count Alberhat, Bertha, showing off in front of the mirror, notices traces of cuts in a visible place. She wonders how the previous owner of her current appearance could leave them on such a beautiful body. Out of narcissism, the girl is interrupted by her maid, who came to notify that her fiancé and his escort have arrived, and asks if she should tell her to make an appointment. "Anything else, my lady?" Jana asks, after she has fulfilled all the mistress's requests. In response, Bertha asks her to stay here and sends Sona to fetch her fiancé. The maid is surprised by such a request because it goes against the norm. The girl decides to take such a step because of a bad feeling and asks the maid to climb into the closet and hide there. Accompanied by the praises and compliments of the maids, the lady's groom comes to her. "Bertha, my beautiful bride." Taking the heroine's hand and kissing it, the man says that he hasn't heard from her at all. Bertha simply smiles in response and thinks that her fiancé is at least handsome. The accompanying person also does not stand aside and kisses the mistress's hand. The girl thinks that Jacquard, although he has the title of baron, is just a peer. He has no estate, and he cannot pass on the name to his successors. She thinks maybe because of this he became an escort, but she doesn't understand why the groom takes him with him every time. Bertha talks about the baron getting back together with Lawrence, suggesting that he has a lot of free time. As he continues to hold Milady's hand, he glances at her, which seems strange to the girl. The lady expresses the hope that the guest will enjoy the treats she has prepared. Sitting down, she asks the men to join her at the table. They go to a meeting, only it is not her fiancé who sits down with the heroine, but Jacquard, which is why she is surprised. Peering at Lawrence, who is sitting opposite her, she sees a smile on his face, despite the fact that his escort is sitting next to her. Suddenly, the baron pushes the girl with his shoulder. She doesn't understand the situation she finds herself in, and even though she feels awkward now, she can't leave so early. The groom notices that Bertha is not so disgusted today. "Can we say that you have changed your mind?" he asks, based on his conclusions. The girl does not understand what he is talking about and is thinking about how she can vaguely answer his words. She explains that instead of blindly hating, my lady decided to treat it as fun. Lawrence finds meaning in these words and considers it a wise decision. Bertha reads the groom's gaze, and from it, she understands that the guy has a sexual interest in her, but at the same time, he is cautious. She also thinks Lawrence looks a little annoyed. The heroine thinks that this guy must at least be in love with this body. Suddenly, Jacquard gets up and attacks the girl. He begins to hold her hand and begins to kiss the lady. "Stop!" Bertha screams in response to what is happening. However, this does not stop the baron, and he continues to forcibly kiss the young lady. Jacquard grabs the girl by the chest, causing her to scream. She asks him not to touch, but the baron begins to pull the young lady's nipples. Bertha gathered her strength and pushed the man away from her. Her fiancé wonders how the mistress feels now as she kisses and gets caressed by another guy in front of him. In her thoughts, she replies how disgusting she is now, that she just wants to die. Lawrence finds it beautiful that under the harsh and disdainful onslaught of meta-colored muscles, her snow-white body melts. "It's like the devil is trying to dishonor an angel," the guy notes. Looking at what is happening, it becomes clear to the heroine why Bertha hated this crazy pervert. The groom decides to move on to the next stage, but Milady says to stop only at this today. She explains this by saying that she is still in the learning process. "Why are you ruining all the fun?" Lawrence asks. He mentions Ian, who was supposed to be relaxing her body all this time. The groom wonders if Bertha slept with this moron. He thought that this butler was quite useful, but it seemed that Lawrence was wrong in his judgment. Now it becomes clear to Bertha why Ian treated her with disdain. Lawrence recalls how he emphasized that on their wedding night, she should demonstrate to him her first intercourse. Even though it's a trap, the girl wonders if he's going too far. It is difficult for the groom because Bertha undermines his trust. According to him, he will have to doubt every little thing again from beginning to end. Lawrence no longer sees the point in continuing to be lenient with his mistress and asks Jacquard to begin. The baron leans the girl against the wall, despite her threats, and is about to kiss her on the lips again. But Jana comes out of the closet and asks her to immediately take her hands off her mistress. "How dare you! Threaten the lady in the Alberhart mansion, and after that you call yourself a gentleman?" Waving a mop, the maid shouts at two men. Bertha did not expect such protection from her servant, and from now on considers her cool. Lawrence says he got a little carried away today by asking a friend for help. He considers it just an oversight that he made while sharing his opinion. "Sorry, ladies." After these words, he leaves the Count's estate and talks about his intentions to visit Bertha again, but later. Moving away from the situation, the heroine thinks about how she just avoided getting into big trouble. Jana worries whether the lady is okay and asks for forgiveness. In her opinion, she caused her even more trouble with her appearance. In response, Bertha asks to immediately call John to her. Along the way, the maid wonders how she must have been possessed by an evil spirit. She doesn't understand how she was able to interfere in the conversation of noble people, and if they want to kick her out, she won't be able to answer anything. Jana opens the door to the room where the mistress is, and announces that she has brought Jana as she asked. "Milady, were you looking for me?" asks the butler. Bertha turns to him and asks him to immediately triple Jean's salary. The young lady also says that from now on, Jana is her personal maid. From now on, she no longer needs to do unnecessary work, but only carry out her instructions. The maid doesn't understand how this can happen, because she doesn't even have any title. The mistress knows about this and now asks her to leave. Immediately after Jean has left the room, Bertha asks the butler if he had fun eating her out, on Lawrence's orders. He replies that he doesn't know what she's talking about. "Do not understand?" the girl asks, undressing Ian at this moment. She puts her hand on his bare chest and says that she will tell him what they were doing here. While playing with Ian's nipple, Berta talks about how she kissed a man named Jacquard in this room. She also says that while his tongue was in her mouth, his hands tweaked her nipples. "That was the order of Count Lawrence's son," the girl says, squeezing the butler's nipple. She also mentions that her fiancé promised that if she changes her mind, the three of them will be able to enjoy a captivating pleasure. "Did he promise you something similar?" Berta asks, grabbing Ian by the neck. The butler again replies that he does not understand what the lady means, but she continues to talk further, suggesting that he used the name of his fiancée in order to lick her. Covering his torso, Young explains that all political alliances of aristocratic families are like this, and the fact that many couples have lovers. He believes that perhaps it would be better for her if her husband condoned his wife's relationship from the very beginning. Young tries to ask the lady for something, but she orders him to close his mouth. Bertha says not to dare appear in front of her eyes again. "I cannot carry out your order," the butler replies. He explains this by saying that she is not the one he really obeys. In response to these words, the girl swings her arms and hits the guy with all her strength in the face. Leaving the premises, she orders him to leave her living room. The next day, Bertha is drinking tea in a cozy place with a garden behind. She wants to take another sip of tea, but notices a mark on her hand that indicates violent force and harm done to her very recently. The girl wonders what to do with such bastards. She considers the option of asking Count Alberhart for help, but she refuses this idea because she herself chose this candidate, so he will never help her. The pacification of the lady is interrupted by Jana, who has come to say that a certain fortune-teller has come to her about whom she spoke the other day. Bertha asks the maid to escort the guest to her living room, and she also made some decision in favor of Ian. When the girl comes to the door of her room, she meets the butler, who is wary of a strange person, waiting for his mistress. But the young lady replies that she is not obliged to say what kind of person came to her. This joke made Ian turn pale, and Bertha decides to tell him everything a little later. He intends to say something, but Jana comes running to them. The maid says that they are urgently looking for Ian and takes him away from her mistress. As they leave, the butler turns back and sees Bertha grinning with glee. This makes him wonder why the girl has changed so much. Walking into his living room, a certain guest expresses pleasant feelings about their acquaintance. "Nice to meet you?" "Milady, you say? How ironic," the girl replies, shaking the fortune-teller's shoulder. She notices his disgusting character and asks him to remove the hood, because there is no one here. Sitting down, the guy asks Rita how she likes her new body. The heroine shares her thoughts about it, noting that it is very beautiful and there are no problems with money, and it also seems to be bursting with health. The guest believes that perhaps this is due to the fact that the previous owner of the body was suicidal, so the forbidden spell worked flawlessly. "It's all thanks to you." "Thank you, Ursha," says Berta. The guy replies that there is no need for gratitude, because it was a fair deal. Milady wonders why the fortune-teller came to visit her so quickly, expecting to hear some news. "Yes, she died yesterday," the guy answers the lady's question. Ruff asks if the girl has forgotten about their deal. In response, she asks what exactly she should do. The guy, lowering his gaze, says that at the moment, nothing is required from her. While on the road in a carriage, Bertha takes out her pocket mirror and begins to admire herself. Satisfied, the lady notices that today she is also beautiful. Having arrived at her destination, she goes down to the morgue, where a guy meets her and tells her how 2 days ago, her lung disease worsened and she died at dawn. A terrible smell emanated from the corpse lying next to my lady. "She was so young, I feel sorry for her," says the boy standing next to Bertha, who is mourning for Rita. The heroine moves away the blanket that was lying on the corpse of her friend and is convinced that this is her past body. Examining the corpse in which Bertha's soul was located, the heroine believes that the girl suffered from coughing until the very end. She begins to think about how pathetic her past life was, remembering the events of 10 years ago. While she was playing the piano as a child, Rita overheard a conversation between her mother and Fraud Carter. In the conversation, the man asked the girl's mother to stay in their house for 3 weeks. The reason was that he needed to check the condition of his possessions. But the journey from home to the border zone takes 2 days. The woman doubted the decision, but under Carter's pressure, she could not resist and allowed him to stay in the mansion, despite the fact that the owner was not present at the moment, and she was alone with her daughter. One day, Rita allowed Frood to enter her room. As soon as the guy entered, he began to strangely walk towards the girl, which is why the lady began to be afraid of him. The man threw her onto the bed and forcibly began to lick the girl's neck. 2 men and her mother came running to the young lady's screams. "You dirty woman!" one of the guys shouts. From what he saw, he formed the opinion that the girl had copulation with the servant, hiding it from his brother. The idea came to them that Rita, too, might not be Wicker's daughter. According to the heroine, everything turned out too well for these people that they were able to kick her and her mother out of the family in less than 3 days. 10 years later, while working in a bar, the girl coughs up blood and thinks that if she had committed suicide like her mother, she would not be suffering now. Rita finds a wanted poster for Ursha. Looking at the photo, she wonders where she could have seen him. The girl suggests that this guy might be one of those who lives next door, but she doesn't understand why the wanted list says that he is a girl. Rita is ordered to return to work, and she decides to go to the hospital after work. Afterwards, she is given the results of the examination and asked to prepare for the worst. The girl walks a little away from the hospital and falls to her knees, wondering why she is dying. While in the isolation ward, Bertha comes to Rita again, which makes the heroine not at all happy. "Today she's going to make me angry again," the girl wonders in her thoughts. Bertha suddenly shares her envy of her, that's all, because she will soon fall into a comfortable sleep without pain and suffering. Rita is at a loss as to what the young lady is talking about, and Count Alberhart's daughter shows her hand, on which cuts are visible. "Now do you understand why I envy you?" Berta is interested. When the girl has the opportunity to be outdoors, she hits the tree standing in front of her out of anger. Rita doesn't understand how a person near death can talk about having a baby. "I don't want to die yet," the lady says in tears. At this time, a carriage stops next to her, and she decides to hide behind a tree. From the carriage comes Archduke Van Brandt, who runs the social institution, Rydal, and the Supreme Court of Osland. Fraud Carter also comes out. Rita wonders how Carter ended up here. She decides to eavesdrop on their conversation, in which they exchanged compliments and praises between each other. In this conversation, the girl learns that Fru managed to become a marquis after a dispute with his older sister about the right of inheritance. After Carter sees the Archduke off and wishes him bon voyage, Rita decides that she must survive by any means necessary, even if she has to sell her soul to the devil. Returning to the present time, she understands that if it weren't for Ursha's help, now she would be the one lying in the morgue. "Bertha, don't envy me anymore and sleep peacefully," says the mistress, trying to close the dead girl's mouth. But the man standing next to him shouts for the lady to be careful, because despite the fact that the man has died, the lung disease is very contagious. The heroine asks if there is someone who could have taken the body of her friend. The guy replies that she is an orphan who has no relatives. Taking her ring off her finger, Bertha expresses her intention to take care of the girl's repose. "Will you be able to cremate her corpse?" the lady asks, presenting the man with a ring. The boy takes the jewelry and puts it in his pocket and notices the lady's generous heart. Suddenly, Hans is shouted by an unknown person. Turning around, the heroine sees Archduke Van Brandt in the doorway. Hans greets His Highness with all respect and asks what business he has with him, that he even went down to the morgue for this. "Your Highness the Archduke, I am Bertha from the House of Alberhat." The girl introduces herself to the guy, bowing to him. In response, the man takes Milady's hand and kisses her, expressing pleasant feelings about their acquaintance. Brandt asks the lady why she came to such a place. The girl is in tears and tells him about the loss of the person she was looking after. The Archduke tries to console the lady, but she interrupts him, mourning her friend and asking him to leave here for now. His Highness expresses his hope that as soon as the girl says goodbye to the deceased, her sadness will at least dissipate a little. He leaves the morgue and mutters to himself that the atmosphere has changed a bit. Bertha asks Mr. Hans to continue their conversation where they left off. The next day, while on her estate, the lady rejoices at how she now feels at ease in her soul. Now the girl does not need to worry about the fact that Rita is alive. Now only Ruff is left. But however, she believes that he is a lifesaver for her, so she decides to just watch him. The lady turns to Jana and notes that today is beautiful weather, just right for a walk. The maid asks the girl if she has a place she would like to visit. Bertha shares that when the warm spring wind blows, she thinks about her friends. Please, friends? Jana asks in surprise. A personal maid wonders if she should submit a request to visit the Duke of Shade's estate. Bertha asks why only this family. Won't my other friends be upset? The girl notices. Jana asks for forgiveness and says that, unfortunately, she did not know about the extensive friendships of her mistress. If the young lady gives the names of friends close to her, the maid intends to contact them as soon as possible. Does the Count's daughter have only one friend? The heroine is surprised. Now she understands why, during the entire week that she was in this body, she did not have to receive any invitation or letter. Bertha orders to forget about the rest and simply send a request to the Duchy of Shade and receive an answer before noon today. The girl believes that everything is not so bad, because her friend is the daughter of his lordship Sheeta, the only one in Osland. Milady is greeted by Julia Shade, the eldest daughter of Duke Shade. She expresses her concern about Bertha because there has been no news from her. Bertha explains this by saying that she had some business to attend to. The lady imagined Julia differently. She looks more naive than the heroine thought. However, she still doesn't understand why Bertha avoided her. According to Jean, whenever Julia asked for a meeting, the young lady made the excuse that she was busy. Miss Sheeta asks how my lady has been all this time. The girl says that she was a little busy. In a social institution where she was a volunteer, a patient dear to her died. Are you talking about the institution run by Archduke Brandt? Asks Julia. But the lady is lost in her thoughts about the fact that her friend has nothing special. The girl gives Bertha her favorite strawberry chocolate cake, which she bought at the best pastry shop. Julia decides to ask how things are going with the lady and her fiancé. God, it looks like you still don't like the son of Earl Lawrence, notes the daughter of the Shada family. Bertha ponders the bitchiness of her interlocutor. She wonders if she would like such a pervert if she were in her place. Julia again advises the heroine to talk directly with Count Alberhart, because this concerns her personal life, and also develop your skills like her. According to her, it is not difficult if you do everything with enthusiasm. Even though Bertha will not be able to reach Julia's level of swordsmanship, she can still begin to learn. The girl then advises her to get a job as a government employee. After listening to Miss Sheeta, the lady understands why Bertha avoided her. Birds of a feather! Julia reveals that she will soon enlist in the Royal Guard, so she will be busy. But if the heroine wants to start working, she assures that she can help with this. Wow, the lovely ladies are out for a spring walk, says Blaine Shade, the Duke's eldest son, butting into the conversation. Bertha immediately greets the man. Blaine emphasizes how beautiful the young mistress looks. The guy also noticed that the girl was getting ready to leave and spoke about her intentions to take Milady to the main gate. See you soon, Julia. Bertha says goodbye. She hopes that she will never meet her again. While seeing the girl off, Blaine notices her new dress, which is different from the others. In it, he says, she looks like a blooming magnolia flower. Bertha says that she heard that Julia will soon enlist in the Royal Guard. She asks the guy if he is worried about this. Of course I'm worried, he explains by saying that if his foolish sister makes a mistake while accompanying the royal family, the honor of the Shade Duchy will be at risk. The mistress has already started to go inside the carriage, but Blaine takes her hand and says that if she has any ideas to ease his worries, she can let him know. He will be incredibly happy about their cooperation. Bertha realizes that the older brother and sister are competing for the inheritance. That's why Julia talked about enlisting in the Royal Guard. The girl believes that if Shada's eldest daughter wins this race, it will complicate everything. She wonders if she should put aside her peace of mind to help Blaine. Lady, what are you thinking about so much? The guy is interested. The lady tells him that it's nothing serious. Blaine reflects on the fact that Bertha used to act like someone who was desperate for attention, but now she seems to have learned to hide everything inside herself. Milady thanks her eldest son Shade for accompanying her and enters the carriage. A few days later, they meet again. You came earlier than I thought, Blaine marvels. Bertha asks if the guy has prepared everything she asked him to do earlier. He responds positively to her. To be sure, he asks the girl if she wants to check everything together. The young lady agrees with this and notes that they still have a lot of work to do. From the corner, John follows with his gaze the leaving carriage in which the daughter Alberhat is located. During the ride, Blaine thinks about how the girl does not feel discomfort in such a small carriage and how, for the sake of secrecy, she put on a plain dress. It seemed to him that Bertha was just a stupid young lady. The guy decides to ask how the girl knew that illegal brothels were still operating in their duchy. Who knows? She replies. Then Blaine also asks how Bertha realized that Count Toda, the commander of the Royal Guard, was a pedophile. From this question, the heroine remembers earlier events. Earl Todd's wife was a friend of her mother. On the recommendation of the mistress of the house, she was hired as a mentor to the heir to the county of Ribena. The commander of the royal guard met Rita and kissed her on the cheek. He also asked to take care of Ribena and noted that the girl could come to him anytime she wanted. One ordinary day, Mr. Todd leans the girl against the wall, taking his hand. She clearly doesn't like this and puts up verbal resistance. Fortunately, a boy comes into the room. When they were having dinner together, the Count put his hand on Rita's leg. Noticing this, Ribbon asks his father why he is touching the young lady. She doesn't like it, the boy notes. The boy's mother hits the table with her palm and asks him to go to his room. Count Todd, in turn, she asks to talk to her alone. After a short wait, the woman comes to Rita and asks for forgiveness. She hoped this wouldn't happen to her friend's daughter. "You are a lady from an aristocratic family. How could this libertine afford such a thing?" Ribena's worried mother asks herself. She plans to give Rita compensation as an apology. The woman advises the girl to leave and promises that she will try to find housing for the girl. Returning back from her memories, Bertha wonders if she could find that person if, on the advice of the Countess, she left for another family. But she still believes that working in a bar was the best way out for her, and she shouldn't think about the past. From her thoughts, the girl is interrupted by Blaine, who notifies that they have already arrived at the place where the May Peach is located. Together they go inside, where a crowd of unknown people are holding a certain man hostage. "Hey, who are you? Why are you doing this?" the blindfolded guy asks in horror. A group of people meet Bertha and Blaine. The hostage says that there is an ordinary vegetable shop here. He assumes that there has been a common misunderstanding. One person from the crowd kicks him in the head, causing him to fall to the floor. Blaine asks him not to yell at the guy. "I just want to make a tempting offer," explains the eldest son of the Sheeta family. At this moment, Bertha wonders what a bastard Blaine really is, although she sees talent in him. Sir Shade says that he knows that their hostage has a regular client who is actively using his dirty business, Count Toda. Blaine asks if the guy knows this person. In response, the man decides to humbly remain silent. Bertha's ally understands that their conversation is not going well, believing that it is because he made a bad impression. He believes that they need to discuss everything in private. While Blaine deals with the hostage, the young lady wonders how many girls have shed their blood, sweat, and tears in such a luxurious place. She decides that she needs to show Count Todd how tough life can be. A few days later, the commander of the Royal Guard comes to the May Peach. He is, as always, greeted by the boy who runs everything here. He asks what the Count wants to buy today. Any new peaches?" asks Sir Todd. The guy replies that of course there is and asks the man to follow him. The Count is taken to a room where a certain girl is already waiting for him, who reminds him of Rita. Todd, noticing the lady's cuteness, asks how old she is. "I'm 17, the girl answers. The man, stroking the lady's hair, says that she turned out to be a little older than he thought. Milady conducts a monologue in her head, saying that she is actually 25, but she needs money, so she should hide her age. The Count asks the girl's name. She hesitantly answers that her name is Risa. Todd compliments her name and shares his thoughts that it's time for them to slowly move towards the most important thing. The man tries to unbutton his shirt, but for some reason unknown to him, he is unable to do so. It is at this opportune moment that the girl attacks the Count and throws him onto the bed. Along the way, she remembers how they promised her a double reward if she cut off Mr. Todd's genitals. She accepted such a generous offer because with the help of this money, she can stop working as a waitress and live a normal life. Having pulled down the man's pants, she takes out a knife and makes a targeted blow to the place indicated to her. Blood begins to splatter everywhere, accompanied by the terrifying screams of the commander of the Royal Guard. The Count wakes up with a headache and wondering where he is. Only the moment of his arrival at the May Peach was imprinted in his memory. Suddenly he remembers what happened to him at the last moment. "Hey here! Is there anyone outside? Come into the room!" the man screams in horror. Sir Blaine comes into his room. Seeing Duke Shade's son, Todd concludes that he is at his lordship's residence. The Count feels terrible pain below the belt, and Blaine advises him to move less and also relax. The man, in complete horror, does not understand how this could happen to him. "Maybe you know about the May Peach?" Blaine asks. From such a question, Sir Todd wonders if the son of Duke Shade is also a visitor to this place. Blaine reveals that this establishment is an illegal brothel disguised as a store where girls are exploited. He also says that the Count received an anonymous letter, so he visited this place yesterday. My Lord Shade wonders how anyone dared open something like this in the Duchy of Shade. The guy also adds to the story that while they were examining the room, they found the Count unconscious with a wound on his body. And, unfortunately, they were unable to catch the culprit. He explains that the wound was very serious. They provided medical assistance as quickly as possible, but now it will be difficult for Todd to acquire another heir. The commander of the Royal Guard wonders what Milord means by these words. Overhearing the conversation, Berta in her thoughts asks the man to stop whining, because no one even died. The Count asks what Blaine told his family about the incident. The guy replies that he sent them messages that a man was injured when he carried out a raid with him. Todd thanks Milord for this, but he notes that he cannot lie forever. As you well know, honesty is the family motto of the Dukedom of Shade, Blaine reminds. Bertha, being outside the door, is surprised by the guy's shamelessness, especially at such a moment, wondering if he is adopted into the family. The Count begs Shade's son not to do this to him and asks him to enter into the position of a man. Blaine mentions his younger sister's imminent enlistment in the Imperial Guard. Sir Todd, having just heard about this, answers the guy's request and says that he will take care of everything and will immediately give her his place. However, surprisingly, Milord's service lies elsewhere. He asks to make sure that his sister can never get into the Guard. Blaine explains this by saying that he cannot allow a small and fragile child to take the thorny path of a guardsman. The guy is worried that something bad might happen to his sister. The Count expresses his understanding, but reminds him that in return, Blaine must keep his secret a secret. In response, Milord swears on the honor of Shade's family and asks the man to rest, noting that they will soon come for him. When Blaine leaves the room, he ponders the request to emasculate Sir Todd. Bertha stood next to the window. Approaching her, Milord expresses his gratitude to the girl for her help. "Milord, I am glad that I could help you," the lady answers. Looking at the young lady, Blaine wonders whether it would be too wasteful to give her to another man. Blaine is ready to show his sincerity to Bertha for her help, and if she needs his service, the girl can calmly turn to him. The mistress asks the guy to show his sincerity right now. "How can I help?" Milord asks, placing his hand on the lady's face. Bertha shows her hand, which has a large bruise on it from a recent incident. The heroine plans to pay the groom twice the amount. She tells Blaine that Lawrence paid her a visit, and something happened by chance. My lord notices that her man seems to be very strong and wonders how he can help her. The girl decides to ask if the eldest son of the Shade family knows Baron Jacquard. He will think about the fact that she is asking not about her fiancé, but about his henchman. Blaine says that at least the man she is asking about, Baron, is one of those nobles who cannot pass on the title to their descendants, and he is also a member of the personal guard of Count Lawrence. That's just the way it is. However, Milord also supplements his information with the fact that Jacquard owns a secret store where they sell dream gifts. If she knows how to get there, she can buy some very interesting things. Blaine stares at Bertha and argues that the girl is no different from others, recalling similar incidents that became his experience in communicating with women. He believes that the lady, trying to start a conversation about another man, is trying to draw attention to her person. The young lady also decides to ask about her fiancé, Count Jean Lawrence. My lord is surprised by her words, because it turns out that she did not plan to make him jealous. This upsets the guy a little, and he shares his feelings. The beautiful girl keeps talking about other men and not about me. Then Bertha wonders if she should make amends to him a little. However, in order to calm his jealousy towards her fiancé, she will have to try. Blaine wonders what the girl will do. She confidently comes too close to him, literally climbs on him. The young lady, licking the guy's ear, goes down his hand below the waist. She grabs his genitals through his pants, which gives Milord great pleasure. "Wake up," Bertha whispers in the man's ear. The girl believes that she has fully repaid him, so she hopes he will provide her with reliable information. Leaving, she asks not to accompany her and, opening the door, says, "Well, adios." Left alone, Blaine comes to the decision to stay away from Bertha for a while, because the woman's actions, which cannot be explained, are very dangerous. Arriving at her mansion, Bertha decides to take a little nap because today was a hard day. From sleep, the girl is awakened by the aroma of herbal oil and pleasant touches. The lady decides that this was Jana, but when she raises her head, she sees Ian above her. The butler thought that the young lady looked tired, so he decided to give her a massage. The heroine is furious that the man gives massages too well. Ian notices that Bertha has recently become close to the eldest son of the Duke of Shade. He believes that such actions will have a bad impact on the lady's reputation. The butler decides, with Milady's permission, to relieve her fatigue by stretching her body, but she pushes him away with her hand. Bertha reminds the man that she clearly told him not to show himself in front of her. "Mistress, this is for your own good," Yang said, and after these words he was hit in the face again. The girl promises that next time she won't just leave it like that. The butler reminds the lady that her fiancé is Lawrence, so he expresses his hope that she will take into account the reputation of the Alberhat family. The guy decides to leave her and let her have a good rest. Bertha wonders what these people think they are, and even if Ian believes so strongly that he is right, he will soon change his mind. The girl is sure that when she removes the bandage from her hand, his opponent's eyes will be intoxicated with a dizzying smell. Having fully prepared, Bertha calls Jana to get ready for the journey. Arriving at the store, the lady sees the slogan, "We will give you a good sleep," noting that it is 100 years old. Bertha asks the maid if she learned all the notes she gave and what Jean should do after that. "Yes, trust me," the maid answers. Hearing the answer, the young lady realizes that she likes her personal maid for a reason. Entering the store, the girls are met by a guy who immediately asks how he can help the ladies. Bertha asks the guy if all the products that are shown are in stock. "Exactly so," the man answers. When the lady raises her hand, the guy notices a bandage on her hand. Jana gets into their staring contest and says that it seems that the item Bertha needs is not here. Asking for forgiveness, the man asks what exactly they are looking for. "A product that will give a beautiful woman a good sleep," the heroine answers. Bertha says that she is looking for a certain sleeping witch. Blaine told the lady that this store sold illegal medicinal elixirs. Among the wide range of goods, Milord also heard that the store has a poison that kills. Even though a person is sleeping, he looks like a corpse. The girl thinks it's ironic that the poison that simulates suicide is called Sleeping Witch. "Please," says Milady, grabbing the guy's hand. The boy realizes what the lady is talking about, and he asks her to wait a little. The lady asks Jana if she took what she told her about. The maid takes out a whistle and reminds herself that if a dangerous situation arises, she will immediately whistle and call the bodyguards. Moving away from Jean, Bertha wonders whether he will fall for her trick. Suddenly, from the crowd of passers-by, a cry is heard asking Miss Alberhat to stop. Immediately after this, Jacquard runs to the girl and grabs her. He takes her around the corner and says that he heard about how she bought a medicinal elixir. The Baron suggests that she is again planning to make another suicide attempt. "It has nothing to do with you," Milady replies. Jacquard asks to give him the potion while he says, "In a good way." The man begins to threaten her, saying that if she does not give up the elixir, he will take it by force. Tearing Bertha's cape, the Baron says that she herself provoked such a situation, so she asks not to hold a grudge against him. He grabs his chest, but the girl pushes him away and orders him not to do this to her. Jacquard turns Milady's back to him and begins to caress her breasts. Jana is standing nearby, but because of the darkness, she cannot see what is happening to the heroine at the moment. After the man has completely groped the girl, he finds a bag of elixir and takes it. When Bertha screams, Jacquard leans her against the wall again and holds her hands. She asks the man why he is acting this way, because he also knows that Lawrence is a real devil. The Baron releases the woman and says that in any case she cannot die, at least not while he is looking after her. When the guy leaves, Bertha finally understands that Jacquard loves her. Jana runs up to the heroine and says that because of the darkness, it was impossible to see anything, so she did not whistle recklessly. Bertha feels that her strength is slowly starting to leave her, so she decides to quickly return to the mansion. The lady says that she wants to drink the tea Jana prepared and asks if she can brew it. The maid replies that she will prepare the most delicious tea for her. Bertha asks her personal maid if she has heard from Julia. Jana asks for forgiveness from the lady and assures that she will send invitations to visit again. The heroine thinks in her thoughts that Julia seems to be very ashamed since she could not get into the royal guard. The girl asks the servant to send invitations until she receives a response. The lady comes to Ursha, who visited her again. When she sat down next to him, the guy smelled a scent that reminded him of Tatum's place. The girl asks him for help. A letter arrived from abroad from Bertha's parents. This letter says that they went to Tatum in order to conclude a major deal. The lady suggested that this place is the birthplace of Ruff. She remembers how in the past she came to the sorcerer for help. When the guy opened the door, he thought that Rita might be another bounty hunter. The girl shows Ursha a wanted notice and asks if it is him. Milady says that she has a request for him, and the guy first asks him to take her inside. "My name is Ruff, the second spark that flashed on the bright sand of the desert. And what about you?" says the man. The girl replies that her name is Rita and asks if it is true that the guy is an outstanding sorcerer. According to Ursha, he will become one if he fulfills the young lady's innermost desire. Otherwise, he will become a charlatan. "I'm going to die soon. Can you save me?" Rita asks with the slightest hope. From these words, the guy wonders if she really sees him as a doctor. Then the lady grabs his hand and asks if he can kill a man. Ruff explains that the law of equivalent exchange operates in the world. To kill one requires taking the life of another. Rita is ready to give her life. In that case, can you kill one person? Asks the girl. The guy asks about the man's age and how long, in her opinion, he has left to live. The lady replies that he is now 40 years old and will live about 20 more. Ruff says that she has too little time because excessive exchange will cancel any magic. What about suicide? Asks Rita. The guy has an idea, and he thinks my lady will like it. Returning back, Bertha believes that she did the right thing by finding Ruff. She says that now the parents of the real owner of this body are in the Tadama Palace. Recently, they often share meals with the Sultan's wives. If you're interested, can you take it and read it? The lady asks, holding out the letter. Ruff wonders if the girl really called him just to boast that her parents went to Tatum. Or maybe she still has something to do with him. Bertha says that she needs a drug, but not a simple one. Few people know about it, and only a sorcerer can make it. She shares her demands that she would like it to be a stimulant. The lady doesn't mean it in a sexual way. According to her, it must be a drug that awakens violence. Since her parents have left, Bertha considers this an excellent time to get rid of her fiancé. Looking at her, Ruff thinks that with the help of her good-natured face, she is going to ruin someone's life. He asks to send a person to him in 9 days, during which time he will prepare everything. In gratitude, Bertha gives the guy dried dates, cloves, argan oil, and saffron. The girl wanted to give him something more significant, but she could only find this. Bertha promises her benefactor that one day she will help him return to his homeland. While on the balcony and enjoying the pleasant air, the girl notices that today the weather is too good to ruin someone's life. Jana, passing by, asks if the lady is in a good mood today. Bertha tells the maid that she needs to go somewhere. The maid wonders if the young lady is going to visit Shade's residence. And the servants also notice that my lady has not yet received an answer from Miss Julia. The lady thinks that perhaps Jean thinks that she no longer has friends besides the eldest daughter of the Shade family. No, today I will go to the royal palace, says Bertha. Arriving at her destination, she thinks about how she thought the palace would be overly luxurious, but it looks quite practical. The man who met the ladies points to one of the buildings of the building, saying that the administration is located there. Suddenly, Julia appears, who is very angry that she could not enlist in the guard, and also that Captain Todd still has not returned from sick leave. The girl wonders if the Count really shouldn't have looked her in the face and told her the reason for her disqualification, because she screamed at the top of her lungs to the ugly duckling Bertha that she would join there. Unexpectedly for Julia, Bertha calls out to her and assumes that the goddess sent them a blessing if they ran into her like this. Miss Shade agrees with a truly amazing coincidence. "Oh my God, Julia, you left the Royal Guard Corps," the lady notes. Bertha believes that the girl came to look at her new workplace, finding it an amazing solution. Julia asks Milady to speak more quietly, because with his loud speech he disturbs other people. The eldest daughter Shade also decides to question her friend and wonders why she came to the palace. Bertha reveals that she plans to see her fiancé. Although she believes that this is a standard marriage, she seems to slowly begin to feel sympathy. Julia wants the girl to have a good time with her groom, but she's about to leave because she's a little busy. Bertha grabs Miss Shade and asks where she is going. The lady notices that the eldest daughter of such a noble family is truly magnificent, unlike her. "You are now an officer of the Royal Guard," Milady says, smiling widely. In her thoughts, the heroine asks Julia to stop chattering. If she lies that she works in the guard, then severe punishment will be applied to her for posing as a civil servant. A young lady asks a guy passing by if he is a member of the Royal Guard. The man replies that it is. She tells the boy that he will soon be working with her friend, who is next to her. Julia asks Bertha to stop this circus and says that she did not pass the selection. The mistress asks her friend for forgiveness and suggests that this is why the girl did not respond to her request for a visit. Julia explains that this is not the case at all. In fact, she was a little busy. The girl also reminds Bertha that it's time for her to visit her fiancé. Leaving her friend, Milady reflects on how she felt lighter in her soul, and now it's Lawrence's turn. Approaching the guy, Berta asks if they are right now near the administrative building. The man asks why the ladies are here. The lady says that she came to see the deputy director, Jean Lawrence. The boy, getting ready to see the girls off, says that his office is on the 4th floor. "No, you are probably busy. I'll find the way myself," Bertha assures. Walking down the corridor, Lawrence wonders what wind brought his bride here. He remembers what happened last time in the mansion, and notices that recently my lady has become unusually active. Was it really so difficult to announce your arrival in advance? The man asks himself. He thinks that all this is good for her, but Bertha is so stupid that she continues to refuse him. Entering the room with the lady's permission, Lawrence asks what happened since she decided to come here. The girl expresses her gratitude that the groom deigned to devote some time to her, despite his workload. Lawrence again thinks about Bertha's change, confirming his arguments about it. The lady notices the incomparable aroma of tea and asks the guy if he should pour him a drink. Having refused her, the man pours himself some tea, and while drinking, asks the question of what happened again at Bertha's. In response, the girl begins to cry, and Lawrence asks her not to behave like that, because he must know what happened in order to help her, and asks her to tell about everything. "I cannot go on. It's very difficult for me. Please let me go, please!" Bertha tells her feelings in tears. The young lady explains that she does not want to marry Lawrence, but he is not surprised by these words. The guy has heard so many things that he has already lost count. Bertha asks to say something in response to her. Jin himself is thinking about how the girl got him all this time. Lawrence reminds that the lady knows very well that this is an important alliance, which does not depend in any way on whether they like this arrangement or not. The girl notices that the groom is very cold towards her. He replies that he told her about this more than once, that this is not their decision, but a union of families. "Is your family that important to you?" Milady asks. She doesn't believe that Lawrence can't let her go, even though he doesn't love her. In response, the guy just silently sips tea from a mug, looking away from his mistress. In the moment, she remembers what she did a few minutes earlier. Bertha dripped the elixir that Ruff made her into her tea. When she did this, the girl came to the conclusion that leading a guy to attempt rape was too trivial and obvious. "Do you think I don't love you?" Lawrence asks after finishing his tea. A man notices the beauty and charm of a girl by telling her about it. Bertha never expected to hear such an answer. The groom also shares his pain from realizing that she does not perceive his feelings. The heroine believes that until this moment he had controlled himself well, but now he will no longer be able to restrain himself. The young lady decides to ask why Lawrence forced her to kiss Jacquard. "Is this what a real man should do?" asks Bertha. Hearing these words, Jin asks him to calm down and not go too far with the girl. Getting ready to pour himself another mug of tea, the guy thinks about the fact that my lady is determined to drive him to white heat today. The lady says that she still knows the real reason for his behavior. Lawrence is perplexed by Bertha's words, noticing that she is saying strange things today. The lady expresses her opinion and says that the reason for this is that the guy is actually small. "I have seen everything!" Bertha shouts. She explains this by saying that it was for this reason that he brought his friend Jacquard. The heroine shouts to the whole room that Lawrence is the owner of a small pod. In response to such words addressed to him, Jin angrily gets up and hits the lady in the face. For everything that is happening, Lawrence blames the girl herself, who is lying on the floor, trying to recover from the man's blow. As he leaves the room, he tells her to watch her language from now on. Stepping outside, he slams the door and mutters to himself that Bertha really doesn't understand the words. The lady looks at the place of the blow in the mirror and thinks that despite Lawrence's unsteady gait, his fist turned out to be heavy. The girl is surprised by the iron nerves for such a pervert, because even after drinking a stimulant, he stopped only at this. Descending the stairs, Bertha peers out the window along the way and notices the peculiarity of the sky in such beautiful weather. At this time, the Archduke passed nearby, and noticing my lady, began to admire her beauty. The man turns to the girl, and she immediately greets His Highness. He asks to lower the greetings and notices the mark from Lawrence's blow. Sir Brant runs up to Milady and asks what's wrong with her face. Bertha asks His Highness not to pay attention to this, thinking about how she always runs into this man at the wrong time. "Who dared to hit you?" Sir Brant asks insistently. If the girl wants, he is ready to help her with filing a complaint for causing bodily harm. The mistress assures him that she just made a small mistake and there is nothing special about it, thinking to herself that such interventions will not help her. Brant asks if it is true that the young lady is not going to file a case about this. "You showed so much concern, and I'm like this," the girl notes, thinking that she can't get caught here because she planned everything so carefully. Smiling, the lady asks for forgiveness from the Archduke and says that it is time for her to go. Brant blushes from the tenderness of such a beautiful lady. Coming to his senses in response, the man asks the lady to be careful. Looking at Bertha leaving, Brant thinks that someone definitely hit the girl. He wonders who could allow a hand to be raised against such a weak creature. Looking around, The Archduke realizes that the young lady came down from the fourth floor. The man is trying to remember who occupies a leadership position there. Back at her mansion, Bertha, dressed in a large amount of clothing, stands with her personal maid. "What about the other servants?" the lady asks Jana. The servant replies that on the young lady's orders, she told everyone to leave here. Jean also says that Bertha made a lot of effort to appear in all her glory at the royal palace, but unfortunately, she returned with a mark from a slap on her face. The heroine ponders the fact that her maid has no idea that this is also part of her plan. The girl remembers how last night, Jana cried all the way home because she was hit, expressing the hope that today the maid would not get a heart attack due to shock. Bertha tries to put on her boots, but she is unable to bend due to her tight-fitting clothes. But fortunately for her, the mistress can now rely on Jana, who will happily help her mistress. When the maid has finished everything, Bertha reflects on the fact that in this equipment she will survive even if she collides with 6 carts. The young lady orders the servants to go downstairs and wait for her there, and as soon as the girl is downstairs, Jean must take her to her room and take off all her clothes. "Yes, I can handle it, madam," the maid assures, and then my lady asks her to quickly go downstairs. On their way down, Jean wonders why Bertha has put on so many clothes, suggesting that she is trying to lose weight for the summer. Taking a step, the heroine reflects that the connection between noble houses is not so simple that it is possible to break off the engagement with one blow to the face. As she falls down the stairs, she speaks to herself in her thoughts about her next step, which is necessary to gain enormous strength after allowing herself to be hit. With Jean screaming, Bertha slides down the stairs, flying higher with each blow. When the girl rolls up to the maid, she thinks that the mistress has just made another suicide attempt. When Bertha comes to her senses, it seems that she managed to break something by falling down the stairs. In a hoarse voice, Milady reminds the maid of the order she gave before falling down. Jana remembers her words and carefully lifts the injured girl. The servant shares her opinion that if Bertha broke something, moving around on her own is not a good idea. The heroine finds logic in what was said only by her personal maid. Clenching and unclenching her fist, the girl comes to the conclusion that despite the pain, fortunately, she didn't break anything. "It's okay, just do it," Bertha orders. Jana, holding the crippled girl, asks her mistress to be patient a little longer, and soon she will take her to the room. When they found themselves in Bertha's chambers, the girl asks the maid to take off all her clothes. As the maid fulfills her request, everything begins to swim before her eyes. Milady also asks Jean to under no circumstances do anything like compresses. The servant undertakes not to do anything of the kind. Otherwise, all the sacrifices that Bertha made would simply disappear. Having rested, the heroine wakes up with the thoughts that she almost died from such pain. The girl asks Jana, standing in front of the bed, to bring her a mirror. When she looks at him, a picture opens before her eyes, where bruises are visible all over her body. Examining them more closely on her body, the lady assumed that the bruise marks would be more visible, but this turned out not to be the case. However, even in this case, they will be useful to her. "What time is it now?" asks Bertha. The maid replies that it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Having learned the answer to her question, the girl asks Jana to prepare everything for leaving the residence. Arriving at the right place, they are greeted by a man who wonders why the young lady arrived here without warning. Seeing the bruises on her body, the gentleman asks if he should call a doctor. She assures him that this is not necessary and that she is fine. Berta explains this decision in her thoughts by the fact that she even specially put on makeup that would highlight her bruises, so she under no circumstances needs a doctor. Having heard the mistress's wishes, the man decides to accompany her and asks her to follow him. When they arrive at the place, Bertha asks the gentleman for forgiveness for coming so unexpectedly and asks if Sir Jean is currently in the mansion. The man says that the young master is still in the royal palace, but if the girl doesn't mind waiting a little, he will immediately send an urgent message saying that she has arrived. Inwardly, the young lady is not surprised that Lawrence is not at home because she specially came at such a time. "I will be grateful to you for this," Bertha replies. While the man has not yet left, my lady decides to ask if Baron Jacquard is in the mansion now. They answer her that he is here at the moment and asks the girl if she should call him. "Yes, please," the young maiden replies with a grin. Before opening the door to the room, Jacquard recalls a conversation with Lawrence, where he spoke unflatteringly about the lady, calling her cash cow. In this dialogue, Sir Jean also wondered how you can moan just because you are not marrying for love. It is for this reason that, whispering in the Baron's ear, the guy asks to satisfy the girl instead of him. Hearing such a request, Jacquard thinks about what strange preferences Lawrence has, and playing his games is not the most pleasant pastime. Carefully study the essence of women, Jin advises his friend, shaking his shoulder. The Baron, left alone, reflects that before he had fun only with waitresses. The man could not imagine that Lawrence would even mock his bride. While Jacquard was standing outside the door while the bride and groom were having a tearful conversation, he decides to take a peek, and seeing the girl, notices that she is smaller than he thought. Seeing Bertha's beautiful face, the Baron is stunned by her beauty and falls in love at first sight. Returning from his memories, Jacquard remarks that he would never have thought that they would meet alone like this. However, he decides not to think about this, because the Baron climbed so high with great difficulty, and throwing everything away because of unrequited love is stupidity, according to him. The man knocks on the door, and Bertha, who was sitting quietly, allows him to enter her room. When Sir Jacquard opens the door, he immediately remembers what recently happened to them. The Baron sits down opposite the girl and turns his gaze away from her, as if ashamed of her. The lady notices that despite the fact that the man is sitting in front of my lady, he has never looked into her eyes, and also pretends that he does not notice anything. "Are you afraid of me?" the young lady asks in her thoughts, based on what she sees. Jacquard asks the girl why she decided to call him to her place. She apologizes to him for this, but Bertha explains her decision by saying that she definitely needs to tell him something. The Baron asks Milady to speak as quickly as possible because Mr. Lawrence will return soon, so he must leave this room as soon as possible. In this case, the young lady asks the man to at least drink a cup of tea, holding it out while he listens to her. Jacquard decides to do this. Because it's just one cup, he should just drink it quickly and leave. The man takes a sip of tea, and at this time asks the girl to start talking about what she wanted. Milady at this time watched intently as Jacquard drank the drink into which she mixed the drug. Relaxing her gaze, Bertha says that she needs the poison that he took from her and asks to return it to her. The young lady believes that even in this way, she will still be able to escape from Sir Jean. Jacquard gets up from his seat, approaches Milady, and taking her hand, fully examining her bruises, asks what it is. The Baron continues to examine the bruises of the injured Bertha and comes to the conclusion that it does not look like self-harm. The heroine pushes him away, shouting that his touch hurts her. "What happened to you?" Jacquard asks, taking the mistress's face. She wonders if he now feels relieved, and if he has completed the examination, then Milady again asks to return the medicine to her. The girl notices that if she dies from beatings or from poison, nothing will change for the Baron. That's because he's not even a real knight. Jacquard, according to the young lady, is not capable of protecting anyone. A man ponders how the man who treated the young lady like a courtesan is the suitor of the Honorable Miss Bertha. The heroine notices that finally, the effect of the drug has begun to manifest itself. She decides to ask Jacquard to return the poison to her again before her fiancé returns. Milady leans against him, even trying to seduce the Baron into making concessions. Bertha says that if Jean beats her again, she won't be able to take it anymore. Jacquard leaves her and finishes his tea as quickly as possible, as he promised. But now he leaves her alone. Walking down the corridor, the Baron ponders the fact that he lost his temper, although this is not like him. He decides that he should go outside to get some fresh air, but on the way he meets Lawrence. "What? Why did you leave there?" Sir Jean asks his bodyguard in surprise. Noticing traces of lipstick, Lawrence decides that Jacquard has already managed to grope Bertha. The Count asks him how he dared to touch her with his dirty snout without his permission. Clenching his hands into a fist, the Baron asks the question, "Did you hit Miss Bertha?" Lawrence says that she behaved too arrogantly, so he taught her a little wisdom. It seems to the young master that because he hit her, the Baron felt pity for her. To himself, gritting his teeth, the man calls the guy a vile bastard. Lawrence believes that Jacquard became naive after learning that Bertha was beaten. "It turns out that mocking her is normal, but hitting her is pathetic?" asks Jin. He reminds that the Baron is only his dog, so he should know his place and obey him, and if he does not do this, the Count will give the maiden to someone else. Lawrence also says that he will play with her until she is completely drunk. While the guy was saying this, Jacquard swings his fist at him. Having received a strong blow to the face from the Baron, the Count falls to the ground. The man beats Jin, and the people around are going to drag the scoundrel away from the gentleman. Bertha decides to watch what is happening. She had no idea that Jacquard would go so wild. The girl decides that she does not need to go out there. From what she sees, Lawrence will be heading to the afterlife before the mistress even lifts a finger. Closing the door, she decides that maybe it will even be better for her. Listening to the screams coming from inside, the lady comes to the conclusion that the turmoil will not subside soon. Due to the fact that the Count is the right hand of the Marquis, the girl decides to conduct a small search in order to find something useful. And she manages to find a secret room, which is most likely intended for Lawrence's sexual pleasures. Anyway, who is this perverted bastard we have here? Bertha asks herself. The heroine believes that perhaps she can find something interesting in Sir Jean's room. Still, she needs to get at least something here. While looking around the room, she comes across strange flowers. Typically, nobles put a lot of effort into the interior decoration of their home. Therefore, the girl is surprised that someone was able to place drying flowers in Lawrence's bedroom. The mistress begins to think that something is clearly wrong here and decides to rip them off, taking them to her place. At this time, the turmoil in the mansion continues, and the servants try with all their might to stop the beating of the young master. Bertha decides that she should go out quietly before it is too late. Milady takes out her handkerchief and puts it in a cup of water to simulate tears. After leaving the room, the girl can see Sir Jean lying on the floor, covered in blood. At this time, the Baron continues to beat the master, despite all the efforts of the servants to restrain the man. She shouts to the enraged Jacquard, who is carrying the blood of Bertha's fiancé, to stop. The Baron, hearing his beloved's voice, turns back towards the young lady. Leaning against the wall, the tear-stained lady explains to the Baron that he doesn't need to go through this because of her. "Please stop. Fine, Jacquard?" the lady asks, with the hope that the man will listen to her. He stands in a complete stupor, trying to understand what was happening now. The Baron comes to his senses and decides to stop. The servants, seeing this, immediately begin to tie him up. With his face on the floor, tired Jacquard looks at Miss Bertha, who is crying because of what happened. After some time, the heroine stands in front of the mirror and notices that her bruises have almost disappeared. In such a situation, it is not beneficial for her to have an overly healthy body. Recalling the conversation with the investigators, she expresses regret that she could not bribe them, believing that perhaps this happened due to the fact that one of them was a subordinate of the Archduke, because they simply lack flexibility in such matters. Questions. Jeanne reminds the lady that she has to go to court in time, so she should hurry up. Bertha asks her maid if she has prepared mourning clothes for her. In response, the maid notes that she has not asked the young lady anything before, but she could not imagine that the heroine's fiancé would die in such a way. "Me too," Bertha replies, heading towards her bed, on which the girl's outfits lie. Pointing her finger at one of the dresses, the madam says that she will wear exactly this, and also asks Jeanne to do her makeup like last time, creating an emphasis on the bruises. "Yes, madam." Milady decides to ask her personal maid if there have been any messages from her parents. Jeanne says that after the last letter, they didn't send anything else. The heroine begins to reflect that despite the fact that her fiancé has died and is also called to court as a witness, her parents continue to remain silent. The girl comes to the conclusion that Bertha's parents are also extremely suspicious. Jeanne remembers the flowers that the lady entrusted to her and reports that they were well dried without any damage. Milady decides first of all to quickly finish with the trial, because she also needs to find out something about flowers. Arriving at the court, a worried Julia approaches Bertha. She expresses her concern in the situation, noting that her problem with the guards, against the backdrop of the loss of her fiancé, seems insignificant. The friend advises the mistress to remain strong in such moments, meaning that she must overcome this. Bertha decides that Julia decided to put on a show, playing the role of a caring friend. Milady asks her to leave her alone for a while, explaining that it is still difficult for her to remember what happened. Julia is surprised by the girl's reaction, as if she had hit her where it hurt most. The eldest daughter of the Shade family continues to tell the heroine to remain strong, but Bertha interrupts her friend, asking how she can talk about the late Lawrence in front of her. Julia begins to look around, while the lady explains that it still hurts her to remember Sir Jean. Blaine suddenly intervenes in their conversation again, having decided that her sister has again caused inconvenience to Bertha. The guy, taking Julia away, asks her to leave her mistress, giving her time to mourn her fiancé. Glancing at the young lady who was wiping away her tears, he reflects on how he initially thought the heroine was an unusual woman, but he could not think that Bertha would deal with her fiancé personally.